Good evening, good morning, ladies and
Morning.
gentlemen.
Good
I mean,
morning.
if that intro music doesn't keep you awake for the next 45 minutes, myself and Dan have got absolutely no hope, no matter what we bring to the table tonight, Dan, because yet again, it's another late one from the BoyleSports World Grand Prix in Leicester. Delighted to be joined by Dan Simpson from the team. First time this week, buddy. How are we doing?
Very well, thank you, mate. Very well indeed. Good to be back on. First time this week. This tournament is a favourite of mine, so really good to be getting stuck in. I've been completely good. We were just talking before how I've missed every other bit of sport this week, and I've seen no football. I've seen nothing because it's completely got me this tournament. I love it.
Yeah, let's just stick to darts, as Lee Boyce would insist on at the minute. It's a darts show, Dan, apparently. Let's not talk football after... I know, because my team did all right this week. Bugger it, and his team are going to get smashed tomorrow night. But he will be on the show. Oh, I forgot. This is... I'll get to that a bit later, but I'm not on tomorrow. Lee is instead after Man United losing Europa, so please... Right, at night 3 of the BoyleSports World Grand Prix. Stop waffling, Jack, and get on with the show. Just the 4 matches this evening from round number 2 in best of 5 sets. And Dan, there wasn't many in the crowd again tonight, but those that were certainly got value for money.
Yeah, I think we've talked about these tournaments before. In the obviously seeded draws. We see. I'm not going to say that. I think some of the games were a touch underwhelming. Probably more last night than Monday. Monday night was quite good. Last night, I think I was a bit underwhelmed as a fan watching at home. Tonight, I think is where the tournament really got started, and the big boys came out to play. Definitely value for money in terms of the amount of darts that everybody got to see. I think nobody's complaining this week. They've not seen enough legs. They've gone the distance in every game. I think, Zach, we've seen every possible set that we could have seen this evening.
6 out of 8 last night, 4 from 4 tonight. Rest in peace, my sleeping pattern.
Long week. Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old upstairs who's probably going to be awake in half an hour, I would have thought. He could end up on this show.
Much rather you than me. Hello to people in the chat room as well, by the way. Jack says, what a night. Mike Green says, what a sport, 100%. Daniel says, hi, Potable. I think that might be a reference to Chelsea winning in Europe this evening. Evening, Colin, good to see you. Rob says, hurry up. Garby's on his way home, I believe. He'll be up in Manchester this weekend for the Seniors Open Series event as well. Joe says, evening all, shame about Johnny not at it tonight, though. We'll get to him very, very shortly. And Matthew says hello as well. Let's get underway then, Dan. We'll just go in order once again, as has been our modus operandi throughout the week. Game number 1, absolute belter to start the night. Really, really looking forward to this. 2 players seemingly on the up at the minute. 2 players that played very well. If they did miss doubles, it was at the similar sort of time. What I'm trying to say is you don't need Tom Plossalva just to make a great game, because I could have sat and watched this at this level for another 2 hours.
Oh, superb! I think personally for me, it was the game I was most looking forward to tonight. I think before I was a bit disappointed when I saw the draw, because I think before the draw, if the 2 unseeded players that as a supporter of individuals that I probably keep an eye out and look for the most at the minute because of what's going on with my number 1 guy. But Ben Litton's on Chris Dobby, brilliant lad. Always keep an eye out for him. And Eddie Lewis, I'm a big fan of. So I was always going to be sort of frustrated a little bit to see one of them go home tonight, but then elated that one of those guys was going to make the quarters and go on. But I think it was a really, really entertaining game. The way so I was watching it with my wife tonight, and the way I described the way the game was going at one point, when you watch 2020 cricket and they have the predictor and I said, like, if the predictor in this game would just be swinging from one side to another, up and down, because at so many moments in the match it looked like one of them was just going to break the other one and kick on, and neither broke, and they both really dug in. Dobbs got there in the end, but not without a really, really solid performance from Adrian Lewis that I think he'll take a lot from. As the calendar's really tight over coming months, I think I do think he'll take some momentum from tonight.
Yeah, I guess the story of this match is the mini little comebacks, right? They're both on that sort of progression in their career anyway. This is the game that didn't happen 2 years ago because Adrian Lewis had to withdraw due to testing positive for COVID anyway. First set, Lewis out of the blocks, unbelievable, 3-0, gets the job done. Dobby fights back to go 2-1 up. A couple of years ago, Adrian Lewis crumbles in that situation. And I won't agree with anybody telling me anything different. From 1-0 up to 2-1 down, Adrian Lewis would have lost 3-1 18 months ago when this game was played. However, goes on to level up, 2 apiece. Dobby holds his nerve in and decided to banish some of those demons from the match play earlier this year and previous losses. It was just set up really nice, and as you said, it was crap almost that somebody had to lose.
It was, and I do think just when you talk there about Dobby holding his nerve, I think he was the first one to say when he played the match play. I think the phrase he used himself was he bottled it. And tonight he absolutely did not bottle it. Like he was, when he took that 100 out to win the match, Eddie was sat on 45, and winning took all at that point, and that took a huge amount of bottle to ping that. And I think that he might have exercised a few demons tonight as well, which is great because I think it haunted him a little bit, that experience at the match player and feeling that might reoccur and that he has the potential to bottle it, but absolutely not at all tonight did he bottle that. He both players really dug in, and it just come down to at the end to which one of them was gonna hit that double first and get over the line, and thankfully for Chris it was him.
Indeed. Let's hear then from Chris in his post-match press conference, hear what he had to say after his 3-2 win over Adrian Lewis.
Well, where my game is at now, it's nowhere near where it was 12 months ago. You've seen this averages I was producing on the floor, on stage. I was probably averaging, I was probably the top 5 out of everybody on the Pro Tour. And it's just been nowhere near that this year. And like I say, I'm going to put that right. I know I can get there, and I just need to put that extra few hours in back home, and I'll certainly do that. There's 100% for sure. Adrian Lewis is on his way back up as well. Fantastic. 160s, 120s for fun there, and obviously, not in the Grand Prix, but in the other ones, they're going to be 180s for sure, and the only way is up for him again.
I like that. A bit of respect between both players. I think I said it on social media as well. The game was just played in the right way. It was at a nice pace that suited both players. No antics. They just got on with it. And at the end, there was a lot of mutual respect between the pair in a game that could have gone either way. How darts should be played.
Yeah, absolutely. A really good start to the evening, and probably a sign of things to come. It was just a proper, solid, good match between two players in form. We didn't electrify. We didn't get the Hollywood finishes that we saw a little earlier in the week from Dobby, but that didn't take away from the fact it was just a tremendous game of darts. Really good.
Yeah, it was. Evening to Ryan Jackson, who says cheers from the States. Hope you're both well. Very well, thank you, buddy, indeed. And before we do move on, Dan, you mentioned your top 2 players were these 2 because your number 1's a little bit out of form. I've got some news for you. Did you know you beat Phil Taylor in a final of an exhibition the other day?
I did hear that. Yeah, I did.
I averaged 102.
I was going to say with over 100 average, I think, and it's a very positive sign coming out of Teesside at the moment. That bit of news. It's certainly done the rounds locally, and we can all keep our fingers crossed that people are talking about Adrian Lewis, being back and. Nothing would make me happier than to see Glenn on the way back to top form as well.
Yeah, he did promise it in an interview with us just a week or so ago. Available in full on our YouTube channel, as are all of the full interviews with the players post-match. We're just playing you short little clips from their post-match press conference. If you want to listen to any of those in full, stay on our YouTube channel, head over and check those out after the show, or in the morning when you're a little bit more refreshed than we are. On to match number 2. And could probably clip this from previous shows and just put it in again. Why is he chopping and change? It made no sense. Peter Wright gets over the line against Krzysztof Ratajski. He loses the first set. No, wins the first set.
Yeah.
Opts to change darts. Loses the second set. Opts to keep the same darts, and then ends up chopping back to him again at the end of the match. Finishes with a 90 average. Steady enough work without a ton plus checkout from himself. 40% on the finishing doubles. Look, it's not perfect from Peter Wright, but he's still a threat in this competition. The World Grand Prix has to be.
A massive threat, and I think there were, there were signs tonight. You're right. Didn't hit a ton plus checkout. The 94, I think, was about the best that he got, but 8 180s. And you can probably marry those two figures together in that his scoring was good, and he hit so many 180s at the right times that he didn't leave himself too many ton plus checkouts to have a go at. To be completely honest, it wasn't that he had a load of them and missed them. Peter, I think, we could almost do a GIF, couldn't we? Just hit that every time rather than waste our energy and say, why on earth is he changing darts again? He would probably argue frustratingly that it worked tonight. He won. He'd say, well, it worked. It worked, didn't it? I think we definitely saw better darts from him with one set than another, 100%. It was an interesting game. Certainly not the back and forth that we saw in the first game. But Ratajski didn't lay down. He didn't go away and he didn't give up. He just didn't have the level to really threaten Peter. At no point through the game did I sort of think that it was in doubt. Even as because he put up a good fight and Ratajski played very well. Didn't play a million miles away from his best, but Peter Wright at 90% would probably beat Ratajski at 90% because he's a better dart player, and that's probably not far away from what I think we got tonight.
Yeah. Do we think? Look, Ratajski's another player who was ridiculous 2 years ago. Picked up just the one Pro Tour at the very end of last year, but was on a bit of a decline. Seems to be heading in the upwards direction again. But much like the two we've just spoken about previously, and Glenn Durran, and Daryl Gurney last night, and Rob Cross, and Kim Hybrex this season, there's only so many players that can be moving in an upward direction.
This is the thing.
Get knocked out of tournaments, and I think Krzysztof Ratajski is a victim of that right now.
So I had a conversation with somebody that, just as passing casual darts fine in the pub, having a bit of a chat, and they were talking about the players on the rise, and new and old players on the rise that might have a chance of breaking the top 10. And I think the first thing I said was well, hang on a minute. Think of the last 18 months that Danny Noppert's had. He's just broke the top 10.
Yeah.
Take that, and that's what you've got to do to even have a chance. To even
hope somebody drops like a stone. I mean, Johnny Clayton has won 5, 6 televised tournaments in the last 2.5 years. He is still world number 7. Admittedly, a lot of those are unranked, but you think about the success that Johnny Clayton has had. He's still world number 7. Rob Cross is only just behind him. Jose de Salza is still up there in 6th place. Jose de Salza is at £42,000 more than Johnny Clayton. I'm not sure if this is updated to... I know, because Clayton won it last year, so it wouldn't even matter. It wouldn't even come off his ranking yet.
No. And the thing is as well is that's relying on one or two players tanking completely for 2 years, and there's when we talk about these players on the up, we're talking at the minute of 5, 6, 7, 8 players that are in that conversation of he's potentially the next player to break the top 16, potentially the next player to break the top 12. You're gonna have to, for more than one of them to do that, you need more than one person to come out. That's how the rankings work. I think
the players sat just outside of the top 16 right now. By the way, Gary Anderson has dropped to 10, just outside the top 10. By the way, Gary Anderson's just dropped to 10. Luke Humphreys, Joe Cullen, Dimitri Vandenberg, Nathan Aspinall, Dave Chisnell, Dirk van Dijvenbode are 11 to 16.
Yeah,
and we're starting going. Well, Adrian Lewis can be there. Chris Dobby can be there. I bigged up Ross Smith the other night saying he can be there. Kim Hybrex on his way back. Daryl Gurney's on his way back. Rob Cross.
Yeah.
Where do all these players fit?
Yeah, none of them are due to retire, Jack.
No. Although Lee has just made a very good point in the chat, evening in Mr. Boyce as well. First up, he says, evening, gents, none of this midnight finishing tomorrow night. Thanks. Yeah, some of us have got to get back from Leicester at this time. Say Jose still got Grand Slam 2020 money on his ranking. Huge drop incoming. That's 150k plus, I think. So that was still 340 odd. It would still leave him in the top 16 at 150 grand. If it's 200, then he's struggling a little bit. 294.
Yeah, and you've got to think as well, everyone else is going to pick up half a bag full of money between now and then as well.
Yeah. But that's providing he loses first round of the Slam. So is he even there? I don't even know anymore. Why are we still offering? Peter Wright, Christoph Ratajski. More rankings discussion because Peter Wright's provisionally due to go to world number 1 at the end of this week unless Gerwen Price wins the tournament. And if he does, Peter Wright can still deny him being world number 1 if Peter Wright makes the final.
Yeah.
So we've definitely got that to keep our eyes on throughout the week as well. With the war of words currently going on between Gerwen Price, Michael van Gerwen and Peter Wright, which brings us on lovely to Peter Wright's post-match press conference.
Well, it's up to them if they listen or not. I didn't listen to his interview, so I don't give him. If he wants to listen to mine, listen to the interview. It's up to you. So.
Do you enjoy though the fact that they do listen to you like that?
I learned it off of Phil. I learned it off of Phil Taylor. It's just like I used to watch him wind everyone up, but like as he says nowadays, everyone's got their headphones in. You can't wind them up in the background, in the back room. Everyone's going like, oh, everyone's so serious now.
Peter Wright's turned into the master of the mind games.
Yeah, well, I'm on the way out, so I need to try and win games.
Ooh. Interesting.
What, that I'm on the way out comment?
It's an interesting closing line, that, isn't it?
The world number 1 going out on top. Is that his ambition?
He fancies
right off into the sunset.
I think he fancies a ride on the seniors tour. I think that's what he's after.
Of course. Maybe he'll be in Manchester over this weekend.
Why wouldn't he?
I can't quite see it. On to the third match of the night, and on paper, this one shouldn't have been close. The head-to-head record in this one isn't very close. And if you look at the stats at the end of it, Van Gerwen finishes 10 points higher in the averages. But Stephen Bunting put up a mighty good fight once again. A superb performance from him. Another player in that category of players that could be 16 or 10 that we've just spoken about, but he just seems to run into the big performance from the top 8 player far too often.
Yeah, I think there was it's silly to it seems as soon as we've got to that man's game, I feel like I need to use the sentence of doing the right things at the right time. And there was a little window in that match where there was a point, I think, where Wayne Mardle made a comment on commentary that it was 2-2 in sets and Stephen Bunting had only won 6 legs. And I thought, well, if you want a definition of doing the right things at the right time, there you go. And that's it. That's what, it was almost the finest lesson ever in set play. I think he could have lost 9-12 and still won the match. And it was a real sort of strange mathematical equation how Stephen Bunting managed to win so few legs and push it so far. And get. But Michael van Gerwen was the better player. There was elements again. I tend to always use the same sentence when we talk about him, like doing the right things at the right time. But he was quite clinical in the way that he went about his business. Those 6 180s those 6 maxes he threw, he found them at the right time. He found them when he needed to, and he found them when he was under a bit of pressure. The relentless pounding of the treble 19 was like some of the best, or some of watching Michael van Gerwen at his very best always seems to be around that time where he finds that absolutely ruthless accuracy on the treble 19. That is when he is like, years ago when he was at his absolute peak, when his A game was streets ahead of anybody else. It was that treble 19 that really was the signature of when everything was clicking, and we just saw some signs tonight that's really clicking in. and that's potentially a very, very dangerous thing for everybody else at a very dangerous time of the year for that to start. For Michael Van Gerwen to be hitting that sort of form with treble 19s.
Yeah, I completely agree. When he switches that 19s, I think it was set 3 when he just went a little bit berserk with the ton pluses, the treble 19s, wins the set 3-0. He's been missing that gear for a long, long time. And he's, in the past, as you said, when he was dominating 2016, 2017, he knew when to just flick a switch, take the game away from somebody. And we've probably seen it more from Gerwen Price in the last couple of years than we have anybody else. And it seems to be that Michael is still not 100% Michael Van Gerwen, world number 1, world champion, untouchable, but he is starting to bring back some of those traits to his game again. Getting better last leg deciders, got that treble 19 back. He's got that burst of 3 or 4 legs that can take games away from players all over again without looking great.
And that's it. So if I've been really honest, like when Bunting took that to 2-all, I sort of felt the game could go one way or the other, and I felt that whichever direction that game went was completely down to Michael. Like I didn't feel at that point that Bunting had an extra gear to go to. He was almost giving it all he had, to be honest. You know, he'd given it all he had to get to keep on that tail. And I thought, well, you know, this might be the moment where if Michael realizes, you know, he's pulled me back to 2-2, and he could have had a bit of a wobble at that point. But in all honesty, it just seemed to be the point where, you know, doing the right things at the right time. And that's when he kicked on, and that's when he really sort of laid it out for everybody else that he's really here for it this year.
He is. Let's hear them from the Green Machine in his post-match press conference.
No, because back in their mind they know who's the number 1 is going to be, and I will always keep battling for it till I probably retire. I won't stop. I won't stop hunting them, and I always will be hunting them, and then know I will do. So that's why they're probably already making up excuses now for later. Nah, when people start talking about me, I know they got something against me, and they will always have something against me as long as I live. You know what I mean? As long as I play darts for. That's how it is. That's fact, and I can't change anything against that because I'm there. I'm always competing in the tournaments, and I will probably also beat them a lot more times.
And the confidence is back. We've mentioned all those things about the game as well, by the way.
A little chuckle there at that. It was a good, like, you know, he seems very relaxed, doesn't he?
The one thing he never lost throughout all his downturn was the confidence in the interview, saying that everybody still feared him, that he'd start winning and whatever. And I was a bit like, just stop talking for 5 minutes, up your level a bit, and then go back to it. I say the same about Peter Wright when he's playing poorly and he starts running his mouth, picking fights that you don't really need to pick. Gerwen Price is the same. Everybody knows how much I absolutely love Gerwen Price's Instagram account. Not. Just take it off the man for 5 minutes, especially after a loss, please. But yeah, Michael was another one who never stopped saying the same things that he was saying when he was world number 1. And he's just carried on that level. And now that people are back to take swipes and he's back at a level where he can compete with it, he's relishing in it.
Yeah, very much so.
On to the final game of the night and the big story of the night, probably. The defending champion is out. Johnny Clayton beaten 3-2 by Dimitri Vandenberg. Yet again, going all the way to a 5th set. This one won by Dimitri 3-1 in the final set. But much like the previous one, look, Clayton wins the first set pretty comfortably, and you're thinking, here we go, good, nice work for Johnny if you can get it. The way he was playing, fell off a cliff, and the rest of the match was all about Dimitri for me. And this could have been 3-1, could have wrapped it up 3-1 that 4th set. Johnny's scrapped to stay alive in it, and then that starting doubles absolutely killed him in the decider.
Yeah, I think even then, I think it was. Even at that point, it was Dimitri's to lose. Yeah. And my only question, you know, the question that I was sort of asking of myself while I was watching it was, like, wasn't about Johnny. Like at that stage, it was simply like, is Dimmy going to throw it away? Because I did feel completely like it was his to lose. Again, I just think I don't think Johnny's found his found his rhythm this week at all. Neither player was. Dimmy wasn't at 100%, but Dimmy at 90 probably beats Johnny at 80. And I think that's again, probably not a million miles away from where we got tonight. We probably got about 90% of Dimmy, but probably only about 80% of Johnny. And that was fairly consistent. And you use the word rightly, I think, in that Johnny had to scrap to keep level. And I'm not saying the game went in a similar way, but like we talked about the MVG and Bunting game, like it was one players to mess up almost, because the other was having to do everything they could just to keep pace. And I don't think Dimmy, the 154 was very impressive. There was some tongue-plus checkouts in there that were lovely. He wasn't his best. The scoring wasn't particularly amazing. But I did feel like it was always his to lose. And there were moments towards the end where I thought he was going to throw it away. I thought that he was going to snatch, sort of defeat from the jaws of victory more than once. I thought he's not going to get away with it, but he did, and he stuck there. And for all of Johnny's scrapping, he couldn't quite pull him back.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the absence of scoring power. I think that really hurt Johnny Clayton in it, and I don't want to rub it in because I think he's definitely in bed by now. But if he does listen back, Jar had over 7.5 180s in this match. 21 legs were played. Dimmy kept up his half of the bargain. Clayton didn't hit a single 180 in 21 legs of darts.
No, but I'll tell you what, it's not very often. It's not very. And you talk about the 180s. It's not very often that Johnny Clayton gets out 140'd in a match ever. Ever. Win, lose or draw. It's not very often that Johnny Clayton gets out 140'd. He might get out
absence of 180s as well. Like none. It's not as if he was converting them to better scores. Just nothing.
Yeah. No, it just wasn't there. And in this format, if you're not scoring at the level you're used to, if you're the 140 man and you can't find the 140s, if you're not getting in on your first visit and you're struggling with your doubles, then you're knackered. Like, you are up against it on all fronts, because you can get away with not coming in your first time if your scoring's there. But it just wouldn't all stitch together, and it was the wrong tournament for Johnny to not be able to put his scoring together.
Yeah, 100%. Right, let's then hear from the winner this evening, Dimitri Vandenberg. Then we'll look ahead to tomorrow night's games. I'll give us a couple of lines tonight. The last two nights, it's just been, tell me the score and we're moving on. We've got 5 or 10 minutes to play around with, so let's hear them from the winner, which also answers Harino 1981's comment about who won. It was Dimitri Vandenberg, and this is what he had to say in his post-match press conference.
It doesn't really matter, because me and Pete will go up that stage and we'll be going as best as we can, as good as we can against anybody. We are not focused on who is in front of us. We're focused on playing the game and smash our opponents. Don't give them chances. Just batter them from the start till the end, and that's exactly what my plan is now. I've got an extra day off, if I'm correct. I'll be watching the next second round games tomorrow back home in the house. I'll be calling my family, just get myself into a peaceful mind, and then it's back to business. That's the most important thing. Just me, my game, self-belief, and give my best 100%.
Almost a home fixture for him at the minute, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, well, he is local to Leicester at the minute, I believe, with Damon Hector and Damon's partner, and perhaps Jose as well. But I think more interestingly is the thing that Dimmy touched on there is that his next opponent, which I hadn't realised at this point, is Peter Wright once again.
Oh, yes. Former housemates.
Absolute love affair between them for a long, long time. Then they played a match play. That's long gone. Been a bit frosty for a while. Apparently swept under the carpet recently, but the fact it's a bit like Price and Schindler. We're just seeing it everywhere right now. And this is another in the soap opera that is Dimitri Vandenberg and Peter Wright, who are both at the minute chopping and changing equipment as well. So,
yeah, I think it makes it. It's very easy to give you predictions on paper. I mean, we'll probably come to them later in the week, or maybe tomorrow night with Boyce, but it's not as simple as that, is it? That particular match, I don't know. It's not as simple as looking at the rankings and looking at the form and having a go. There's an awful lot of nuance that sits under that needs to go into it.
especially between those two. However, you'll be predicting them tomorrow night with Lee Boyce, as you just said. Our job right now is to predict the 4 matches tomorrow evening, which I don't want to brag. I've got the pleasure of watching live. So let's have some long ones. Don't upset my driver too much. He does have to bring me back home.
Yeah.
But we start with Martin Lukeman against Ross Smith. Lukeman obviously beating James Wade. Ross Smith coming from behind to beat Andrew Gilding. Where are you going with this one, Dan?
Really tough, this one, really, really tough. Which makes me feel like it could. I'll be dead quick in with it. I'm gonna go Ross Smith 3-1. I think that Lukeman. I think Lukeman's great. I think he's a brilliant player, and he's had an amazing run over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. But TV tournaments are a strange situation, and they're a strange beast. And sometimes winning on TV can kick you on and get you some momentum. It can also affect you in lots of other different ways, and there's lots of other things going on, and you do lots of extra interviews. And there's all sorts of other, I think that in doing that for the first time, I'm not sure how easily he'll settle. I also think the crowd will be much bigger tomorrow. There'll be a lot more, there'll be a lot more noise. There'll be a lot more things going on.
I'm taking 5 idiots with me, so there's definitely going to be some noise.
There's at least 6 idiots going on. So, and I just think it's an environment that Ross Smith's been in a lot more times. I think in terms of the game that they bring, I don't think it's too dissimilar. But I just, picking up the circumstances, I'm going to go 3-1 Smudger.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it, and I think you've nailed the circumstances as well. The win over James Wade was Martin Lukeman's first victory on TV in the PDC, full stop, aside from Euro Tours, etc. So that's a very, very big step for him. And what I expect to come from that, pre-show tonight, we had a Chris Dobby feature with Mark Webster. It would not surprise me in the slightest if Martin Lukeman is selected for that tomorrow. So we'll have to do some sort of media in the afternoon.
Yeah, and
go out there and play. And look,
that all adds to the pressure. That all adds to the, it's the realization of the amount of eyes that are on you and how serious this is and how important it is. And I'm convinced he'll have had, everyone he knows and everybody he went to school with will have sent him a text and a Facebook message and a tweet. And it's a different situation tomorrow. Than what he dealt with the other night.
And I also think that I just expect Ross Smith to get in that little bit more frequently and put Lukeman under pressure that little bit more than James Wade managed at all in that entire performance. It was dreadful from James. Lukeman was very, very good on double 16. It's, can he do that if Ross Smith is already in and 120 points ahead of him every time?
That's it.
James Wade being 6 starts behind and then hitting double 10 and him having all the time in the world for the majority of that match to do whatever he pleased. So I've got the same scoreline as well. I've got Ross Smith to win 3-1. Chat room, if you are there, you guys can fire your predictions into the chat. We'll flash them up on screen as well. We're going to move on to number 2. I'll flash up both sets in a second, though, because I forgot to pre-warn you that this bit was coming. Match number 2, Daryl Gurney against Madders Razma. Very, very good win for Gurney over Rob Cross in the first round. Razma probably the most adept at just moving around the dartboard in general. I don't think there's anybody else as comfortable as just hitting random segments as Madders Razma is right now. Longer format.
Cameraman's nightmare. He's the cameraman's nightmare, isn't he? Looking around like that.
All over the place. It's got to be Daryl here, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, this, because arguably, and there's a few that would argue against it, but I think it's probably the only game we've got in this round where both players were not the favourites to come through. They've arguably both caused an upset to get to where they are, which sort of skews it a little bit because already both of them have caused an upset. So they're both in line for him and they're both on form for an upset in this tournament. I can't see past Gurney. I'm being really sort of safe in going 3-1 Gurney. My instinct is it's probably going to be a 3-0 Gurney, and I'm almost covering my backside by going with a 3-1. yeah, my gut's probably a 3-0, but I'm going to stick with 3-1 Gurney, I think.
This is strange and annoying because when I did this segment with Liam on opening night, we predicted an awful lot the same for night 2. And we're doing it the same now because I have the same scoreline as well.
Great minds.
Darryl going to win this one 3-1. Match number 3 and the standout tie, especially in this part of the draw, given how many seeds did depart on night number 2 in the end. Gerwen Price against Joe Cullen. If you're without being disrespectful to everybody else we're now discussing at this point of the show and predicting, whoever wins this match is a strong favourite to make the final.
Yeah, and that's I was about to say you're almost picking a finalist from this side of the draw. I'm going to say Joe Cullen 3-2.
Wow.
He definitely Joe Cullen has it in him to win the tournament. Like some of the performances he put in, like I was in some of the performances he put in the Premier League this year, and I was in the stadium watching it, and I was so impressed by the way that he played in bonkers circumstances, full of noise, rowdy crowds, all this different stuff, and I think everybody knows he's got it in him to win something big. It's just when and what. Like it's sooner or later when and what. And in reality, if you are, let's be honest, they've all looked at the draw, and we can say, a happy amateur can say, if you look at that side of the draw, it is by far the easier route to the final that he's in there. And I think for Joe Cullen, he's almost, he's going to look at that and say, like, this is, Gezi Price is the hardest game available to him. But if he gets through that, he's got a really, really good chance. Really good chance. You look at some of the routes that you look at Dimmy's potential route after tonight, like that's a horrendous route. But I just think, I think he's got quite a lot of composure. I don't think Gezi's yet reached full Gezi. Like I don't think he's yet there. I think he's another one that's just sort of up and down, a bit of momentum. There's a bit of man games going on elsewhere that don't involve Johnny Clayton, that he's not involved in, that's going on. I just think Clayton has a good chance tomorrow, and I'm happy to nail my flag to a 3-2.
Cullen, not Clayton, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm quite intrigued about the contrasting stars here as well. Joe Cullen is nailed on to go double 16 to get in. Gerwen Price is nailed on to go tops and stay on that segment, and he's so good in that. Just a little triangle segment right at the top of the board. I think this tournament is absolutely made for Gerwen Price. He's made back-to-back finals. I'm struggling to see him not do the same here as well. I did back him to go all the way, I think, on the live lounge last week. So I think I'm going to have to go Gezi, but I'm going to say goes 3-2. I completely agree with Joe. The mentality switch in the last 18 months and the ability to win whilst playing poorly or with his B game is something that I just did not expect from Cullen. When you look back at things like his World Championship record and his history on TV and that semi-final against Gary Anderson at the match play, you thought maybe that was all that Joe would amount to on TV at that point, because he just didn't look like he had an answer to getting over the line. He has found something, and boy,
he's found another level. I think in the last 2 years, and I don't. It's not a level with his scoring or with his doubling. It seems it's a level with his composure and with his approach and with his professionalism to being a professional sportsman. Now that's why I think he's found the other level. Right, he's not better than hitting doubles than he was 5 years ago. He's just found a way of playing the game better.
100%. Final game of the night. Last on, set for another belter. Nathan Aspinall already conquering Michael Smith from last on night number 2. He has the tough task right now of taking out Danny Noppert, the new world number 9 as it stands, who has just been incredibly solid. Came through the first round pretty much untouched, with some questionable starting as well, but he just seemed to pull it out of the bag every time he needed it. this is going to be some scrap?
I'm going 3-1 Noppert. I think regardless of the format, regardless of what was going on, if it was a first round match, I think I'd still be on Danny Noppert, because I just think his form's so good at the minute. The way that he's playing is tremendous. The year he's had has been absolutely brilliant. I worry a little bit, and only he knows really, coming back from the injury, about Nathan's stamina over long periods of time. I listened to a couple of his interviews where he was talking about, where he'd reached a sort of milestone where he could practice for an hour, and that was, but I just think, well, if he's practicing, he's played last night, it's a long day on that stage, and it's a long night on that stage. He went on last night, having practiced all night, and I'm not sure where, only he knows where he's at with his recovery. But I think Danny Noppert is by far the more informed player of the two. And I think with those other issues that are just circling around for Nathan as well with his recovery, I think Danny Noppert 3-1 is where I'm at.
I appreciate absolutely all of that, and I agree with all of it as well. But I'm going to give Aspinall an extra set. I think it goes 3-2. I think he scraps it out.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough.
Decider. I don't think there's much more to add to that. And with that, Dan, wraps us up pretty nicely for this evening. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat room who has joined us throughout this evening. The Fall Up Bar will return tomorrow night with Dan and Lee from the team, sat where I'm sat, taking over so I can have a deserved, I'd say well-deserved, I'm going to pat myself on the back, a trip to Leicester myself tomorrow evening to take in the BoyleSports World Grand Prix. A big thank you to BoyleSports for their partnership throughout this week, for all of our coverage. We'll have some more offers, specials, and recommended bets on website for you tomorrow, as well as all the interviews from all the winners on our YouTube channel after this. The Super Series returns in the morning as well. Motor Super Series live from 9:30. And if you don't already do so, please make sure you check us out on social media. Elon Musk is getting involved in Twitter, so a few of the bot accounts that follow us have disappeared, and we like our numbers looking good. So, and over there, give us a follow on Twitter in particular. A big thank you to everybody for joining us, for Dan for staying up on his week of doing slightly less at work this week, and we'll speak to you all tomorrow night.